But let's just kind of rewind a bit with what we know on this story. So Harmony Montgomery has been seen in October of 2019. And Crystal Story, the mother of Harmony Montgomery, the biological mother of Harmony Montgomery, did not have custody of Harmony. Reason being, according to the arrest affidavit that was released yesterday for the arrest affidavit for Adam Montgomery, we had a little bit more insight into what Harmony's childhood has been like, according to the arrest affidavit, who, again, that's produced by police after their investigation that leads to a subsequent arrest. So we have all of these interviews that were conducted with various members of the Montgomery family, and it sheds light onto what Harmony's childhood might have been like in some of the darker moments. And it's one of the arrest affidavit is difficult to read, because you're thinking about a 5-6-year-old girl experiencing abuse, alleged abuse, at the hands of family members, and it's difficult to read. It's difficult to comprehend that something could happen to someone. I mean, we're talking about a beautiful, sweet little 5-6-year-old, now 7-year-old girl. So let's get into some of the details that we learned. Some of the details that we learned from the arrest affidavit. So yesterday, when we were kind of combing through the documents, we heard of Kevin Montgomery. This is Harmony's great uncle, who lives down here in our area, in the Tampa. I'm here in Tampa, Florida, and we're down here in the Tampa Bay area. And folks, I'm gonna probably do this several times. I want to go back to the court feed just to listen in and make sure we're not missing anything. Let's just listen in for a second here.
Is that possible?
This is the only one that we had for you guys scheduled today.
Oh, yes, that's right. This is the only video. Okay. Attorney Ayer, how long will it take you to accomplish this?
15 minutes.
So, okay. So for the jail, we're going to put you on mute. It's going to take us about 15 minutes. We may take up another hearing in between, which may take a little longer. So we're going to ask to put Mr. Farrell on hold until we take up another matter here, okay? I'll have the clerk, Clerk Corcoran. Are you able to email the jail as to when we're ready? Okay, so we'll email the jail when we're ready to take up this hearing. We apologize for the delay for you all. Is that okay?
All right.
Is somebody from the public defender's going to come and get this?
And Attorney Ayer, somebody from the public defender's office is going to come and get this right now?
Yes. Yep. And then I just need to review it.
Okay. The other possibility is Attorney Olson could call you and review it with you, but you need to see it.
Someone will come get it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Please let us know, because the jail is going to be waiting and holding Mr. Farrell until we can continue this hearing. All right. So please, Attorney Olson, stay in touch with Attorney Ayer and let Clerk Corcoran know when you're ready. Okay. Thank you.
You're again watching live from Hillsborough County Superior Court North in New Hampshire, awaiting the arraignments of Adam and Kayla Montgomery.
I gather we're not quite ready in Kayla Montgomery matter, so, I see Attorney Garrity is now here. All right, counsel, I don't see an uploaded proposed bail order. Were you going to do that? Shall we bring Ms. Montgomery up? All right, we'll bring her up. You can set up. Thank you. All right, it does appear that it's in file and serve, so it's going to be retrieved and I'll review it.
The judge, likely aware that a lot of attendees are in the WebEx online portal here, gathering virtually for the arraignments of the Montgomerys. So We'll see exactly what the docket and the schedule looks like for arraignments over the next few minutes. It depends, of course, on when they have everything that they need to begin. We'll stay here with you live on WFLA now.
I have a record office account.
To JM in the YouTube live comment section saying #HJB, is it both of them or just Kayla? As we understand it, we might have the arraignments of both Montgomerys, Adam and Kayla. News Nation's Marky Martin reporting that Adam Montgomery's arraignment could be occurring here as well. We'll continue to listen in for the judge and hopefully get a little more information on the docket here from Hillsborough County, New Hampshire. As we await the judge's announcement for who is next here in Hillsborough County, New Hampshire Court, you can see on the top of your screen, we're in this online portal for these virtual arraignments that are occurring. I mean, they're actual arraignments, but we're attending these arraignments virtually. You can see on the top of the screen, it's very much like a Zoom call, and there's dozens of attendees, and many of them are names, some of the names that I recognize. I was scrolling through them earlier, some of the names that I recognize as reporters across the country. So dozens of reporters who have logged on here for the arraignments of Kayla Montgomery and possibly, again, according to News Nation's Marky Martin, also Adam Montgomery. Just a quick thing to point out in regards to just how much attention the Harmony Montgomery case has begun to receive since she was reported missing to police this past Friday, despite not being seen since October of 2019. I'll continue to try to interact with you here on YouTube Live. Use #HJB. I'll shout out your comment and try to address your comment, whether it's a comment about the story, a reason that you're following this story, or perhaps you have a question on the story. I'll try to read through them, but I'm going to really be honed in on the audio here from New Hampshire, because as soon as they begin speaking, I'm going to be quiet so we can all listen in here together. Ramblin' Rome in YouTube, on the YouTube comment section, #HJB, hope they interrogate them now that they're locked up, and today that we find out what happened to Harmony. I think that is the collective hope from the public, is that with Adam Montgomery.
This is the matter of State v. Kayla Montgomery, docket 216-2022, CR 39. The council identify yourselves for the record, starting with the state.
Jesse O'Neill for the state.
Jalen Roberts for the state.
Paul Garrity for Ms. Montgomery.
All right. Good morning, Ms. Montgomery. So we're going to begin by my asking you, Attorney Garrity, have you reviewed the complaint with Ms. Montgomery? And did you discuss with her the maximum penalties for the charge?
I did, Your Honor.
And does she wish to enter a plea at this time? All right. Ms. Montgomery, you reviewed the complaint with your counsel? And you understand the maximum penalty for this charge? And you wish to enter a plea of not guilty at this time, is that correct? All right. The clerk will enter a plea of not guilty on this charge. What we're going to do now, Ms. Montgomery, is I'm going to take up the issue of bail. I'm going to hear from the state first, and then I'll hear from you and your counsel. You may be seated. Attorney O'Neill?
Thank you, Your Honor. The state's request is slightly different from what's in the proposed bail order, just because I didn't have the capability to scratch out the or corporate surety part. The state's request is a $5,000 cash-only bail. That would also have conditions of no contact with Adam Montgomery. If the defendant is released, that she live at a specific address, of which I'm not aware, which is one of the issues I intend to raise, that she not travel outside of New Hampshire, that she not possess a firearm or other weapon delineated there, that she not consume an excessive amount of alcohol or use any narcotic drug or controlled substance, that she sign that she sign a waiver of extradition, and that if she is released, that she check in daily in person at the Manchester Police Department. The basis for this request, Your Honor, is the defendant's status as a flight risk, and what the state would argue is clear and convincing evidence that the nature of the allegations presents a substantial risk that the defendant will not appear, and that there's no reasonable alternative that will assure her appearance. A lot of this is grounded in the defendant's criminal record. I'll admit that it's not the most serious record that this court has seen, but it does involve great concern for her ability to comply with court orders. The record begins in November of 2012, when she was convicted in the Grafton Superior Court of Class A misdemeanor dealing in or possessing of prescription drugs. She was at the time sentenced for 12 months, suspended for 2 years. About 9 months later, in August of 2013, about 8 months later, in July of 2013, she was convicted of willful concealment, a Class A misdemeanor, and then what is perhaps most concerning to the state, a false report to law enforcement, a Class A misdemeanor. Those appear to have triggered a violation of her probation on the Grafton Superior case, which resulted in 63 days credit for time served, and an order that basically she successfully completed a 28-day residential treatment program. The final conviction on her record is from September of 2015. It's a Class A misdemeanor theft by misapplication, where there was a deferred sentence that appears she successfully completed, and the sentence was subsequently completed. The concern for the defendant's inability to comply with court orders, which would contribute directly to her status as a flight risk, comes from that false report to law enforcement, which was made at the time when really the potential consequence was the Class A misdemeanor penalty on that charge of 12 months in the house, and the 1 year suspended for 2 years that she had in the Grafton Superior case. That was, therefore, a case where basically the consequences were 2 years. Today, she's facing what is the most serious charge she's ever faced, a Class A felony, where the potential charge is, the potential maximum penalty is obviously 7.5 to 15 years in state prison. If the defendant was unable to comply with the condition of her suspended sentence, if she committed the crime of false report to law enforcement, then the potential penalty would be much smaller. The state would argue that that is clear evidence of her flight risk, which would also be an inability to comply with the court's order to return for future court dates. Further raising concern as to her status as a flight risk is the fact that because of this charge, the defendant may lose where she's living basically. She was arrested last night at Pitt, if that was in transition here in Manchester. I wasn't present, but from what I have been informed by police and what I've been informed by Attorney Garrity, there was some conversation from staff and or administration there that this charge may cause her to lose her placement in that facility. That would weaken her ties to the city, weaken her ties to New Hampshire, and further add her status as a flight risk. What I'd also argue is, going back to something I had said previously about this being the biggest charge the defendant has ever faced, the most severe consequences she's ever faced. The believe it's appropriate for the court to consider the strength of the case. If the court is going to impose a cash bail that may potentially result in the defendant's pretrial detention, the court needs to consider the nature of the allegations. What I would suggest to the court is, based on what the court has read in the affidavit, based on the charge itself, this is a strong case. This isn't a case where the defendant may think she can count on witnesses disappearing or changing their stories or some sort of impeachment tactics by her counsel. This is basically a white-collar case where the evidence is documented, the witnesses are state employees who will be relating statements made by the defendant herself or the lack of statements made by the defendant herself. So not only is she facing the most severe potential consequence she's ever faced, but it is a strong case, which further contributes to her status as a flight risk, and again, would be in those nature of the allegations that the court is, it's appropriate for the court to consider at this time. So for those reasons, the state argues that the $5,000 cash bail.
What is the status of her children at this point?
Currently, I believe that they're with the mother. I believe DCYF was notified last night.
Right, for the individuals that are joining us on WebEx, please make sure your line is muted. Please mute your line. Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I believe DCYF was notified after the arrest last night, but that's as much as I'm aware of. That, of course, is to the 3 children whose location is known.
Thank you. Garrity?
In terms of the conditions laid out by the state, we're in agreement with those. The disagreement we have is with respect to cash bail. We're asking the court to release her on personal recognizance bail. To address the risk of flight, I would suggest to the court that's extremely minimal. Ms. Montgomery has lived in New Hampshire since she was 9 years old. She's currently 31 years old. She went to West High School, left high school in her senior year, got her GED in 2009. Her mother lives at 258 Dubuque Street in Manchester. She has an aunt that lives in Manchester. Her grandmother and uncle live in New Hampshire.
Hey, Victor, did you see that thing I just sent you guys? Okay. Thanks so much, Victor.
Please mute your line if you're on the WebEx. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Attorney Garrity.
She has one brother that lives in Texas, but basically the majority of her family live in New Hampshire. She has 3 young children. They are 4 years old, 2 years old, and 1 year old. She was residing with them at 177 Lake Ave at the Families in Transition location. She had been residing there since July of 2021. They are now in the custody of her mother. I've spoken with her mother, Christina Lubin, who's told me this morning that if Kayla was released, that Kayla could come and live with her at 258 Dubuque Street. She's resided at that location for about 14 years.
Attorney Garrity, just so that I understand, she was living at Families in Transition with the children since July of 2021, and the children are now
With the mother.
okay. But custody hasn't changed.
It has not changed. And it's my understanding that to reside at Families in Transition, she has to have the children with her. That's a little I know about that location. But she was also working. She worked full-time at Morgan Records Management. That's located on Frontage Road in Manchester. She had worked there since September 2021. That was a full-time job. She was working 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Prior to that, she worked at Project Flagging in Hooksett. Prior to that, my understanding, she worked at Dunkin' Donuts in Manchester. So she has a history of employment. She has a close relationship with her children, and she's got significant ties to the area and has a place to reside. But the $5,000 cash bail, given her limited resources, would lead to her detention. And I think the whole point of the amendment to the bail statute that took place a few years ago is that financial resources should not give an impediment to people being released on bail. There are conditions as laid out by the state in their proposed bail order that would assure the court and the state that she would appear in future court appearances. And just with respect to her compliance with court orders and bail conditions and the prior record, I know the state talks about the events that took place in Grafton County. She was about 21 or 22 years old at that time. She didn't have her children at that time. The last conviction, and what the state didn't tell you, is that that conviction took place in 2015. That was a deferred sentence that, as I'm sure the court knows, requires that she come back to court and show compliance. She did so in 2016. That conviction also required that she undergo a LADAC evaluation, at least from what I can see from the record, that she comply with a LADAC evaluation and comply with any recommendations. From the record, in September of 2016, she was able to show the court she was in compliance and the case was closed. Since that time, she's had no prior interaction with the criminal justice system. All of that took place when she was approximately 25 years old. She's now a woman of 31 years old, 3 young children, and her lack of record since 2015, I think, indicates to the court, and her compliance with the events and books at this report shows that she can comply and will comply with court orders and show up, as she did in 2016, with any scheduled court appearances. So I would ask the court to release her on personal recognizance with the conditions laid out by the state, with the condition that she reside with her mother at 258 Dubuque Street. That's on the first floor in Manchester. Thank you.
And there's also no objection. You understand the state's request is that she check in daily with the Manchester Police Department.
Yeah, no objection to that.
Okay.
If I
To-
could, the
Yes.
state would be opposed to her living with her mother. This is due to the circumstances of the arrest last night. The state's position would be that defendant living with her mother wouldn't be conducive to her compliance with court orders and coming to court. Basically, as she was arrested last night, her mother said words to her to the effect of, "Don't talk to the police." Which doesn't seem to be conducive to somebody who's trying to stay on the straight and narrow and come back to court.
Attorney, just a second, Attorney Garrity. Attorney O'Neill, I mean, you don't disagree that she's charged with 1 count of welfare fraud. She has a misdemeanor criminal history. It's somewhat unusual to ask for this kind of cash bail for somebody charged with 1 count of welfare fraud. You don't disagree with that, do you?
I don't disagree, Your Honor. What I would say is this is an unusual case. I'm not aware personally of other cases of welfare fraud where somebody was collecting welfare for about 1.5 years for a child who is now released.
Thank you. Attorney Garrity?
In terms of what the mother allegedly said, obviously I'm not in possession of any reports dealing with that issue. I can tell the court that the state did make me aware of that allegation, but I don't think that indicates in any way that Kayla won't comply with court orders. I think her history, especially the 2015 events, folks that indicate that she will, and has shown that she will follow through. And the statement, if it was made by the mother, is a statement of a concerned parent. Given the publicity this case has generated, this is, right now, simply a 1-count welfare allegation. I'm sure the court knows in most circumstances, those cases, not all, but in most circumstances, do not lead to the maximum penalties outlined by the state. Most people charged with this offense are released on personal recognizance bail, given her circumstances, her ties to the area, her maturation, and her shown ability to comply with court orders and have personal cognizance is what's called for.
She's unable to post any cash bail?
When I asked her mother in terms of ability of the family to post bail, the mother told me she had to contact a friend to borrow the $40 for the bail petition.
Thank you. All right, anything further from you, Attorney O'Neill?
No.
All right, the court's going to take this under advisement. Thank you.
On the left side of your screen, live from Hillsborough County, New Hampshire Court via their online portal. On the right side of your screen, the picture of Kayla Montgomery entering the courtroom. This courtesy of Catherine Underwood of NBC Boston, who was there in the courtroom for Kayla Montgomery's arraignment. You heard that she has pled not guilty to the charge of welfare fraud, and there seems to be a conversation taking place now about bond and potential bond amounts. So we'll see exactly what the judge determines to be the bond ruling for Kayla Montgomery. Interesting to note, I was hoping that we would have video to show you of Kayla Montgomery, but the New Hampshire court system here in Hillsborough County Superior Court North, they do not have a reversal shot. So it looks like they have one camera in the courtroom, and it is facing the judge, the clerk, and court personnel. It is not facing the other side of the room. So the right side of your screen here, the picture of Kayla, that is from the other side of the room. Kayla is in the room. We just don't have a live video feed to show you from the WebEx online portal. Here with you live on WFLA Now, again, awaiting for the decision on Kayla Montgomery bail. She representing the second arrest in the Harmony Montgomery case.
Attorney Air, are you still on the WebEx?
Yes, Sue, I just emailed you a second ago. I'm all set.
I got it. I just emailed the jail to let them know that we're ready to resume in Farrell's case.
Thank you.
He just said to give him a minute. So, media on the WebEx, we are concluded in Ms. Montgomery's case. The judge will do a written order later today. Documents will be posted on the requested cases tab of the court's website.
As we approach the top of the hour, approaching noon Eastern. JB here with you live, everybody on WFLA Now. Hope everyone's having a good day wherever you're watching from. We're live with the second arrest in the Harmony Montgomery story, and we're live from New Hampshire Court, Hillsborough County, New Hampshire, for the arraignment of Kayla Montgomery. This is Harmony's father's wife, not the biological mother of missing 7-year-old Harmony Montgomery. Kayla arrested on a welfare fraud charge. And we'll go into the details here in just a moment for those of you just joining us. Again, live, everybody, on WFLA Now. JB back here with everybody. Busy day in the WFLA newsroom as we are monitoring a lot of stories at this hour, including from Hillsborough County, New Hampshire, where the arraignment is underway for Kayla Montgomery, who, as I just noted, is Harmony Montgomery's father's wife. Kayla Montgomery pleading not guilty to the charge of welfare fraud. This all connected to a allegation of stealing food stamp benefits that were obtained at the amount of $1,500 or more between December of 2019 and June of 2021. But according to Manchester, New Hampshire police, Kayla Montgomery is accused of failing to remove Harmony Montgomery from Kayla's family account connected to the food stamp benefits for Harmony, despite the fact that Harmony was no longer living with Kayla and Kayla's husband, Adam Montgomery. And that point is significant because of the time window that we have, according to Manchester, New Hampshire police, December 2019, December 2021. Also, if you're hearing those chimes, I got some tweets sent my way, my WFLA JB Twitter account there. I got some tweets sent my way. Is everybody hearing beeping and chiming? We're basically on a live Zoom call. Every time that somebody joins or leaves, you hear these chimes, and I'll actually see if we can mute those chimes because they.
So you all set?
Let's listen in.
We are. Do you have Mr. Farrell?
Yep.
Perfect. I'll go get the judge. Thank you for being so accommodating today, Bob.
Yep. You're going to go back to court on February 2nd. You made an order and doing felon detention. No bail. But you're going to have a court hearing on February 2nd in studio. No idea. But when you come on, you're gonna sell time, I gave the author that's working on the, one of those forms to fill out for an attorney. So you'll fill that out, hand it back for them. They'll send it to the court, and you'll get an attorney to help you out.
Can you hear me?
So Dan Sharon. Two. There's a motion.
Right, that's 3 weeks.
And Brian Arrow. She's gonna look at it, but since they're ready to go in this, I don't think she.
I don't know, that's up to the judge, but he heard, or if he wants to refile, look on the report from last night. Up for that, I guess.
That would be fine, but not everybody's dropped out.
All right, if you are still on the WebEx, please mute your lines, okay? So, Mr. Farrell, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we'll take up the matter of State versus Farrell. Attorney Olson, you can come on up and proceed, taking up from where you left off.
Okay, Your Honor, where I was with his criminal record, starting only. So his first criminal conviction appears to have been in December 1998 in Manchester court, where he pled guilty or was found guilty of both resisting arrest and theft by unauthorized taking. He was sentenced to 3 months, suspended on the resisting. The theft by unauthorized taking, he was sentenced to 3 months.
Live on WFLA Now, this is Hey JB. Here's JB Buno.
$60,000. That's the reward amount for information leading to the whereabouts of missing 7-year-old Harmony Montgomery as Harmony's father's wife. The second arrest, now pleading not guilty to a charge of welfare fraud that New Hampshire police say comes in connection with little Harmony's disappearance. Hey there, everybody. JV Buno here with you live on WFLA Now. We've been watching the court system in New Hampshire, Hillsborough County, New Hampshire, and as they do, they will bounce around from inmate to inmate. We have, of course, showed you the picture from Catherine Underwood's account. She's with NBC Boston, our NBC sister station in Boston, Massachusetts. A lot of the Boston area television stations have been covering the Harmony Montgomery story, including Catherine here, who tweeted out this photo from being in attendance in the courtroom itself. Now, they were discussing a potential bail amount, and that proceeding was underway, and then they have now reversed course to a previous inmate on the docket. So whether or not we're going to find out whether or not, Kayla Montgomery is going to, what the bail situation, how that's going to unfold, we're going to find out more details about that. But let's just kind of quickly go over what we know at this hour with this story. And if we get resumed here in Hillsborough County, New Hampshire court, we'll of course go back to it live. But as they are focusing on a different inmate right now, we're going to continue our Harmony Montgomery coverage here on WFLA Now. I want to make this clear. Our great friend Marquis Martin, she said that her earlier tweet about Adam's arraignment was incorrect. I thought that was a bit curious, but Marquis, of course, a phenomenal reporter, she had tweeted out that that Adam Montgomery's arraignment would also be pulled into today after it was waived yesterday. That is not the case. That tweet was an error according to Marquis. So thank you to Marquis for the correction and the clarification. So the scheduled arraignment today is for Kayla. That's Adam's wife. Who, as we understand it, of course, was living with the family, part of the Montgomery family, and living under the same roof as Adam, of course, and little 5, 6, 7-year-old Harmony. And I say 5, 6, 7-year-old is because the time window here is so bizarre, is it not? We're talking about different moments in time. Usually when we're talking about a missing child, we're talking about occurrences from previous weeks, days, weeks, or maybe months. With this, we're going back to October of 2019 when she was last seen. We're talking the last time that Crystal Story, Harmony Montgomery's biological mother, saw her daughter was actually virtually. It was over a FaceTime call, Easter of 2019. And this is again, we're talking pre-pandemic. We're talking so when I say 5, 6, 7-year-old, it's because we're talking about different moments in Harmony Montgomery's life when she wasn't 7. She's 7 now, but she hasn't been seen since she was a 5-year-old. And the pictures that we've been showing you, and we'll bring them up here again, these are pictures from when she's 5. Now, authorities have said that her appearance is said to be quite similar, and that's why these pictures are so pertinent to the ongoing search efforts, is because she's likely to look a whole lot like these images. Like, you know, what they have said is that that her appearance hasn't changed all that much in 2 years, according to New Hampshire police. So get a good look at these images. This is still a rescue operation, as New Hampshire police have put it, and a rescue mission as they are looking for missing 7-year-old Harmony Montgomery. So the reward information has been updated, and the reward amount is now $60,000. This is a sizable increase from where we were just a couple of days ago when we were talking about $12,500. We're talking about quadrupling that amount and then some. So $60,000 for anyone that has seen this little girl, 7 years old, missing out of New Hampshire. So Kayla Montgomery, again, arrested and charged with welfare fraud. But there was a commenter, we were about half an hour or so now, and hello to all the YouTube commenters, Juicy, PJ's Journey, Sheesh. I'm not going to do the actual sheesh sound because you don't want to hear that. Holly Henry, Ashley Oakes, Pamela O, a lot of folks joining us here on YouTube Live. Hello there to you. Live, everybody, on WFLA Now. And we're live here to talk about your comments and talk about this story, but also yeah, it was Ramblin' Rome. Thank you, just popping in there. I knew the name was escaping me. Ramblin' Rome, who had said something to the effect of, Now that they are in custody, perhaps we're going to get more information. So I think the collective thought out there from our viewers and from just the general public is that now that we have Adam Montgomery and Kayla Montgomery, that's the father and then wife of the father of missing 7-year-old Harmony Montgomery, now that they are in custody, that police have more access to them. Of course, it's more difficult to try to communicate with an individual that's just out and about roaming free. If they're in lockup, they're way more accessible in lockup than they are just roaming around as any member of the public. And two, if they're out there as well, keeping tracks of their whereabouts. We've covered several stories recently where the immediate family members connected to a wanted individual or connected to a person of interest in a story, keeping tabs on those immediate family members is a task in and of itself. So having Adam Montgomery and Kayla Montgomery in custody certainly makes the access easier for investigators. And as many of you have been commenting here as well on YouTube Live, perhaps the memory that they have of what has happened to Harmony, perhaps it's more likely that they're going to get tangible information that leads us to Harmony Montgomery's whereabouts now that we have Adam and Kayla in custody. Now they are charged with crimes, individual crimes. And the crime yesterday that we were talking about on WFLA, now Adam Montgomery is charged with assaulting little Harmony here. While we have Kayla Montgomery, again, the photo here from Catherine Underwood of NBC Boston, the photo here, of Kayla Montgomery, she's charged with welfare fraud. So we have individual crimes that are associated with Harmony Montgomery, but they're not charged in direct relation to the actual vanishing that we have of this 5, 6, 7-year-old girl. So will additional charges be, and also too, this is when Ramble in Rome was commenting earlier, I want to go back to that thread of thinking, because we cut to the court feed. Now that we have this welfare fraud, are they going to tack the welfare fraud onto Adam Montgomery as well? Is it a joint charge? Is it a charge that that if there was welfare fraud, if they were illegally receiving food stamp benefits collectively as a couple, as a married couple, is that a charge that is then going to be tacked onto Adam? We don't know at this time, but it's obvious to say that the charge of second-degree assault is going to get a lot more legal attention than welfare fraud is going to. We're talking about the second-degree assault of a little child in the custody of that individual versus welfare fraud. So welfare fraud very much secondary as far as Adam Montgomery is concerned. Kayla Montgomery facing that welfare fraud charge. Have to point out, innocent until proven guilty on these crimes. But just put away all of that just for a second. With Harmony Montgomery's, the arrest affidavit coming out yesterday, the charges against Harmony, the charges against Adam Montgomery in relation to Harmony the allegations are disturbing. It paints a very graphic, vivid picture of alleged abuse that occurred. And again, I'll bring up some of my tweets from yesterday as I was kind of combing through the paperwork. I was combing through the affidavit, and you can almost, in your mind, you can picture just this terrible set of abuse, alleged abuse that Harmony was victim of. Adam told, allegedly, Adam told his uncle, Kevin Montgomery, that he bashed her around this house. And Kevin Montgomery is of note to us here, especially at WFLA, because he's right near us. WFLA, Tampa, Florida. And we're here in Tampa. And Kevin Montgomery lives in nearby Newport Richey in Pasco County, north of Tampa, but part of our viewing area. So Justin Schecker, go check it out on Justin Schecker's Twitter account, one of the reporters here at WFLA. He met up with Kevin Montgomery yesterday. Kevin Montgomery very much now part of the Harmony Montgomery story, because he's mentioned in the arrest affidavit, and he is the one who pointed to this alleged abuse, this bashing around the house that Harmony allegedly suffered at the hands of Adam, and also, too, Kevin telling police that that he believed that Adam Montgomery was experiencing a drug relapse at the time of this said abuse. Again, all of this hearsay based on the allegations and based on the arrest affidavit that have been put forth. Also, though, just having Harmony allegedly perform terrible tasks, standing in a corner for hours. In essence, what would equate to a timeout, but hours standing in a corner, scrubbing a toilet with a toothbrush. These are some of the things that family members in Kevin Montgomery, it's all there in the arrest affidavit, and it's all been, put out by various reporters covering the story, myself and others included. But it points to just a really terrible childhood that was allegedly suffered at the hands of caretakers for little Harmony. And it's heartbreaking, just heartbreaking to say the least. But back to what I was getting at, all of this now, Harmony's past is secondary at this moment in the estimations of law enforcement, secondary to the now. Where is she now? Finding her alive so that she can have a future. You can get into her past later, and police can sort through how this was able to happen and how a little girl was able to suffer this alleged abuse and then go missing for 2 years and no one know about it, or mostly nobody know about it, as we understand it. We can dive into the past once we can establish that she has a future, and finding her alive is the chief importance right now, the primary focus for law enforcement there in New Hampshire, and the FBI, of course, joining in by tweeting out information as well. I'm curious to know if the FBI is committing manpower to this, if the Manchester, New Hampshire police, very much the lead investigative agency at this time. It'll be very curious to see if the FBI starts to, pool in their resources to assist. You would imagine that already that has happened, but we can't report that until we know that resources and manpower with the FBI and federal investigators are at the complete and utter disposal of local investigators there in southern New Hampshire. So. Let's read through some of the comments and questions. We will not be able to, because we have a very busy day here at WFLA in Tampa, we will not be able to stay live for the entirety of this arraignment. Let's show it to you. I mean, this is still ongoing, and this could be unfolding over the entirety. The big headline with this is that Kayla Montgomery has pled not guilty, and we don't know exactly what the schedule looks like. I'm not a reporter in New Hampshire. I'm being very upfront and honest with everybody here, being very candid. I'm a reporter at WFLA in Tampa, Florida. We cover stories that our readers click on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. This is a story that blew up with attention because people asking the most obvious question associated with the story is, how does a girl go missing for 2 years? How does a little 5, 6, 7, now 7-year-old girl vanish for 2 years and no one say anything or alert authorities and let police know that they hadn't seen her? Now, the story is becoming more clear as to that question. And it's one of substance abuse, allegations of substance abuse that occurred within the Montgomery family, and the custody being transferred from one parent to the other. And Crystal's story in the arrest affidavit that it was laid out yesterday, that Crystal's story in essence, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in essence, Crystal's story, that is Harmony's your biological mother, didn't have custody, was experiencing substance abuse issues, and once she, quote unquote, regained sobriety, according to the arrest affidavit and according to police who have been conducting interviews on this story, she visited multiple schools. She went to last known addresses of of Adam Montgomery, looking for her daughter to regain a connection, as any mother would. I know that there have been a lot of parents out there. How do you lose connection with your daughter for that long period of time? It's definitely a question with this story, but we do know that substance abuse is part of the conversation based on the arrest affidavit, and that according to Crystal's story, Harmony's biological mother tried to rekindle and reconnect and find her daughter after regaining sobriety, but was unsuccessful in doing so, and here we are today. So Yeah, and just reading through some of the comments here, just prayers that the little Harmony here is found alive. $60,000 is the reward amount, and there's no stopping that reward amount from going any higher. There's as more individuals come forward and pool in their resources, this is clearly a tight-knit community as far as some of the people that have come forward and collectively trying to increase this reward amount. Every time it goes higher, more and more people are going to be made aware of the story and think, yeah, it might refresh their memories. And yes, the monetary reward is certainly enticing for somebody and puts this story on a larger level with a larger audience potentially. It's already receiving a massive national and perhaps even international audience. Hello to everybody joining us from the UK. I know on YouTube especially, we just get a ton of people joining us from the UK with missing children. But the more the reward increases, the more and more we expose the story to as far as an audience goes. All right, let's hashtag HeyJB. We cannot stay live here any longer. Let's just kind of listen in for a moment from court here in New Hampshire. I'm not hearing any audio. Maybe we can just capture a little mention of Montgomery. You can still see that there are countless reporters up top.
He's attempting to reconnect now. We heard from the jail. They're attempting to reconnect now.
So let me explain what that was. And this is likely not connected to Harmony Montgomery, but let me just explain this because this is the reality that we live in 2022 amid the COVID-19 pandemic. These arraignments, many of them have been held virtually. Okay. Tampa Bay news just being shouted out here in the newsroom, and I have to pass this along. It's my job. I know no one cares about sports right now when we have a missing 7-year-old girl, but Antonio Brown just released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a huge story here in the Tampa Bay area. NFL fans know exactly what I'm talking about after the antics that occurred this past week. So for those of you just joining us, NFL receiver Antonio Brown released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was just shouted out by our assignment desk here at WFLA. Vibrant newsroom, a lot of stories happening here today. In fact, I do have to get going here eventually because we are working on a pool of different stories as well, and this could go on all day. This is something that could quite possibly go on quite literally all day long. Folks, I'm going to step away for a moment. Some of our great WFLA staff just alerting me to the Antonio Brown news because that was, again, big sports news here in the Tampa Bay area. Okay, back to Harmony Montgomery. Yeah, back to virtual arraignments. A lot of it depends on jurisdictions. It depends on states and counties and whether there's a county jail, a local jail. But a lot of these arraignments have been occurring virtually. Inmates who are staying within their respective facilities because of the pandemic and are virtually attending their own arraignments. So that's what you saw earlier. We saw a gentleman who was in inmate uniform and appearing on a Zoom call. He didn't leave his particular corrections facility. He was staying within the corrections facility to participate in his arraignment. And this is, again, just because of COVID-19. And usually an arraignment is an individual standing before a judge. And it was interesting that we had, and I don't know the lay of the land with the different jail and prison facilities that exist in southern New Hampshire, but we had Kayla Montgomery, who was in attendance. So the arraignments that are occurring today in New Hampshire court, some of the inmates being brought in person physically and clearly masked up, and then others who are appearing virtually. And that's what they're trying, what's happening right now. And the reason I'm telling you this is that they're trying to reestablish a connection with the jail facility that they were, in essence, zooming in with their particular inmate to participate in the arraignment that was next up on the docket. So challenges with the COVID-19 pandemic persist in all aspects of life, including legally, including our court system here in the United States. Okay, back talking about Harmony Montgomery. $60,000 is the reward amount. Adam, the father, Kayla, his wife, now in custody. they are likely the last ones to have seen Harmony Montgomery, and fingers crossed that she is alive somewhere. She is alive until she's not. She is a missing person. She is not a deceased individual. And your heart sinks because you think about the fact that a little girl hasn't been seen in 2 years, and you wonder where she could be, and your heart sinks about all the terrible possibilities that immediately enter our mind. I think it's just because we're conditioned here with all the terrible news stories that occur and that we are exposed to. You hear about awful, terrible, criminal, sinister things happening to children in this country and really everywhere. The evil that is out there that exists. You immediately wonder if that evil is part of this story. But for New Hampshire police, this is what they call a rescue mission for Harmony. And they are very much trying to find her as quickly as possible. The reward amount is put to $60,000. This is significant because New Hampshire police can't find Harmony at this stage without the public's help. They're going to, of course, they're exhausting all resources possible, but they are pleading with the public's help because they think that that is part of the solution. If they knew where Harmony might be, they're always going to put out a call to the public for help. But you hear that passion plea from the police chief there in Manchester, New Hampshire. The public is very much part of this now, as far as locating little Harmony and where she might have been. And the challenging part, and I'm going to get to your hashtag AJB comments here in a moment, I promise. The challenging part about this is that I can't remember what I did like 3 weeks ago. We're talking about now, when you put out a missing child alert, usually you're asking people to dig back into their memories over the last week or two, or maybe even the last several days. Have you seen this little child? Have you seen this missing person in the last few days since she was reported missing? Police are asking you to go back into your memory banks 2 years. You might have run into Harmony at an IHOP. You might have run into Harmony at an interstate gas station. You might have run into Harmony just walking the streets. We have no idea where she could be. But the challenging part about this from a public's perspective is that, have you seen this girl in the last 2 years? Out and about, you come across kids all the time. I can't remember if I saw, a child in my local grocery store 2 days ago, let alone a year ago or plus. So there's a memory obstacle here that also comes into play. But hopefully, with as sweet and as cute as this little girl is, just hopefully that this face rings a bell with somebody, and that they are able to remember, even just passing. But even again, if you thought you saw her a year and a half ago, it can be so difficult because it might be a girl resembling her. It's just the time component to this story is what makes it extraordinarily challenging from a law enforcement perspective and a locating her with a mass alert to the public perspective as well. Also, no Amber Alert issued, as we talked about with Marquis Martin from News Nation the other day. Okay, hashtag KJB, Lee McLean. What took so long to realize that Harmony was missing? This is something that really, the reason that the biological mother, Crystal Story, didn't know is there was a disconnect that occurred there because of, as we understand it based on the arrest affidavit, that there was a disconnect that she was not seeing her daughter because of a substance abuse issue. That Harmony here was with the father, Adam Montgomery. But why she wasn't in school, why there weren't other factors that came in, other members of the family that hadn't seen her in a long time, why so much time elapsed without her being reported officially missing to police, that is a big question that continues to swirl with this story. This massive fragmentation of communication that occurred within this family. Even Harmony's like an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent not seeing her for 2 years. What gives? Why wasn't there more concern for the fact that nobody had seen her in 2 years? That's a question really that only the family can answer, and hopefully as police continue to conduct interviews with the family, we get more information as to why 2 years was able to pass without anybody really seeing little 7-year-old Harmony. PJ's Journey on YouTube, hashtag KJB. It's common for there to be homeschooling in New Hampshire. I'm not from, I many years in New York, but I've never really lived in New Hampshire. I've never lived in New Hampshire, so I don't know if it is home. We can just kind of do a quick search, homeschooling by state, and I'm just curious if anything. No, I'm getting like regulations. I'm very just kind of curious if that is true. According to a homeschooling resources website, New Hampshire is known for moderate levels of regulation for homeschooling, but that another component of the story as well was it there a belief that Harmony was being homeschooled? If that is the case, and again, we can't go too far deep down the rabbit hole. We try to stay rooted in reality here on WFLA Now, but if homeschooling was a part of little Harmony's upbringing, again, she would have been in kindergarten as a 5-year-old, first grade as a 6, really roughly, give or take, and in second grade as a 7-year-old. If homeschooling was on the table here, with the alleged abuse that was outlined in the arrest affidavit yesterday that was released, that means that she was spending even more time at home, and there wouldn't have been that escape or a resource potentially for a little girl who might have been experiencing abuse to alert somebody to the abuse that she was a victim of. So again, want to make this clear that I haven't seen anything officially in any paperwork or anything from police that homeschooling is part of this, but the commenter here, PJ's noting here that it's more common for there to be homeschooling in New Hampshire. I wouldn't know. I'm not from New Hampshire. I haven't lived in New Hampshire. Big shout out to anybody joining us from New Hampshire. I'm sure that you guys have been doing your part, especially if you're watching this live stream, trying to do your part, being a good member of the community and looking out for little Harmony Montgomery. Teresita Hillis, hashtag KJB. Morning from Tennessee. Was Adam, a convicted felon? If so, how on earth could he still be given custody of Harmony? I don't have his arrest record in front of me. I do know that he's obviously he's under arrest now, but I don't have his exact. I don't want to speak to his criminal history without having his. I like to have an arrest record in front of me before an individual's criminal history is that's not something that you want to speculate on. So I don't have the rap sheet in front of me, so to speak. I don't want to go through potential crimes that he was accused of / convicted of if I don't have that directly in front of me. That's just kind of the journalistic integrity that I try to bring to our live streams. I don't want to say something and be wrong with something as serious as somebody's criminal history. Yeah, and I see that some of the people are commenting and about some of the. I just want to be. It's just me. It's just how I do the news. I don't want to speak to. I know that I also too have seen some things out there on social media about Adam Montgomery and about allegations against him. I don't want to speak to his criminal record without having that directly in front of me, so I could read through it. Stacy Erupt, hashtag KJB. I hate to think that she was either killed or trafficked. Has there been any speculations yet? There's been endless speculation online, Stacia. But when a little girl hasn't been seen in 2 years and the sole provider is telling quote unquote contradictory statements to police and is now under arrest himself and his wife is under arrest, and there's a certain lapse in cooperation that is occurring between law enforcement and between who is supposed to be the sole provider of this child, your heart sinks because where could this child be now? 2 years is a long time. It's difficult when we're talking about something for several days, let alone several years or a couple years. And here's the thing. I do have to get going here, everybody, on WFLA now. We have a very busy day. More streams are planned, by the way. I think those are going to be over on Facebook. So go give a like over to the WFLA Facebook page, or yes, self-plug, WFLA JB Facebook page. Most of our live streams live there. So if you'd like to be part of the streams that we do on a regular basis, this one, certain stories, it depends on, of course, the types of audience and geographically where our audience joins us from. Some streams we primarily do on Facebook, others we do on YouTube. There's a big strategy behind live streaming, and so this one is on YouTube, but if you want to be part of our normal routine of live streams, give a like over to the WFLA or WFLA JB Facebook page. They all live there. Scarlet Pearl, according to Scarlet, saying, #HJB, I live in New Hampshire. Children don't need to legally attend school until age 6. If that's true, still should have been in school, but yeah, that certainly helps because, yeah, I always think 5, school, right? 5, you're going to kindergarten, lacing up your sneaks for the first time, your new sneakers, your backpack, getting ready for school as a 5-year-old. But if that's true, then that's certainly relevant. But she still would have and should have been in school. Brenda also chiming in saying #JB. There are a lot of kids in homeschool in New Hampshire. I live in New Hampshire. It's interesting to note, but we don't know if Harmony was technically in, being homeschooled. We don't know. Kid should be in school or being homeschooled, regardless of. Education is so important at that age, so important. Parents, you know this. those formative years, K through 5, K through 6, are so important. That's why so many families will look to for pre-K opportunities, because sending your kid to school is so important. And if Harmony, in these early formative years, being 5, 6, 7 years old, if she was not receiving education, it falls into this terrible picture of what her childhood and her upbringing might have been like. So, Amanda Cohen, #KJB, who is the second arrest? Just joined. It's right here. Kayla Montgomery, arrested on allegations of welfare fraud connected to receiving more than $1,500 in food stamp benefits. Again, those food stamp benefits were supposed to be with Harmony under their care. They say that Harmony was not under their care, and receiving those food stamp benefits, a crime that Kayla Montgomery is accused of, pleads not guilty to moments ago. Folks, we got to get going here in WFLA Now. A lot of streams over the course of today that are more focused, of course, on the Tampa Bay area. How we stream. Let me just explain this. I'm an interactive journalist. We do interactive journalism at WFLA News Channel 8. That's your NBC station in Tampa, Florida. We have a very elaborate, if you will, streaming strategy. Some streams will do YouTube. Most of our streams you'll see on Facebook. And we stream with the content that WFLA.com readers and viewers are clicking on. This is a story that on WFLA.com just received a gargantuan amount of attention. And that's a good thing in that with a story with a call to action like this, as far as pleading with the public to get out the images of a missing child, that's a good attention, of course, a good thing, because the more people that are exposed to the story, the more people that have seen Harmony Montgomery's face, the more people that we have that are exposed to the story and potentially could be on the lookout for her or may have seen her in the past. But this is a story that really took off here on WFLA.com. And so providing you with the coverage based on the stories that you find interesting. We take just a quick note on WFLA. We very much pay attention to the stories that you care about and the stories that matter to you and the stories that are of importance for our Tampa Bay and our Florida audience, but even our audience joining us from even beyond there. If our content matters to you, we want to do the content that you deem important enough for us to really pour our resources into. So this is a story that really took off on WFLA.com, providing you with updates as we receive them. But we do have other stories, a lot of other stories that we are covering here at this hour on a very busy day in Tampa Bay. Of course, Tampa Bay on the Gulf Coast side of Florida. For those of you who have never been, come on down to beautiful, sunny Tampa Bay. Do so safely, of course, and come join us down here in one of the most beautiful regions of the country. But we are going to be, pivoting to some of the other stories that impact our Tampa Bay audience, our local Tampa Bay audience, and our statewide audience here across the state of Florida. So we're going to get going here. The very latest on Harmony Montgomery, on the arrests of Adam and Kayla Montgomery. All of it on WFLA.com. Updates as they become available on WFLA.com. You can also download the WFLA app. If you sign up for push alerts, you get alerted to when we stream here on WFLA Now. And again, interactive journalism, what that is interacting with you guys in live, in real time, in live real time. So taking your comments, talking with you, having a back and forth conversation with you to carry the conversation forward as far as the coverage of the stories that we provide. So everybody, appreciate you joining us here on WFLA Now. More streams ahead, probably over on WFLA's Facebook page or on the WFLA JB Facebook page. We'll see you over there for our next couple of live streams. Thanks so much for joining us, and more on Harmony Montgomery on WFLA.com, the WFLA app.